People looting. Who thinks of looting? Who thinks of looting when a house is on fire or is still what is it called when it still have the little cinders? How can you break into someone's home and think about stealing a TV, looking for their I don't know, safe? Who does that? The same thing with the
wildfires has been no respecter of persons, from celebrities we know to countless people whose faces we don't know personally but empathize with their loss. I found out about a person I know personally whose family is now among the thousands who lost everything in Tuesday's fire in Altadena. They left their home thinking they would come back, and like so many others, there's nothing left to come back to. A neighbor sent this piece of video to Tracy Roberts on Latoya Frazier.
You guys, our house is gone.
Showing them what's left of their home of 13 years, the house behind the black gate.
There's so many homes that are gone. It's homes, it's our post office, it's the stores. It's everything. It's thousands of homes that are gone, and so
I interviewed them from our CBS 42 studios via Zoom.
We have our moments, you know. 1 minute we're up because we're alive, and next minute, you know, I hate to, you know, I mean, it was everything that I worked so hard for since moving to California. I mean, I grinded, and I did everything I was supposed to do for my life, for our lives. And gone in an instant.
Take us back to Tuesday night, around the time you guys showed us some pictures from as you were leaving the house. What's going through your mind even at that point? Are you thinking you'll be able to come back home?
Yeah, because the fire was on the other side of the mountain. And so Tracy's like, we may have to evacuate. And I said, far, I was in the fires, I think it was in the 90s. I was a kid. The entire backdrop of Altadena was on fire, but it didn't really touch any homes. And so for this to be on the west side and looking at the mountain, it wasn't near us. And so I said, we have time.
But they didn't.
30 minutes later, I see my neighbors packing up, and I go, what's going on? We're leaving. I said, well, the command post is down the street, and they said that we're okay. We drive back up the street, and the command post is gone.
As are thousands of homes in Altadena alone.
There's blocks and city blocks just of nothing. And so I'm expecting to, like, be homeless, not homeless, but not to return, and for a minimum of 2 to 3 years, you know.
What can people do to help you, but also your community? Because, again, as you said, nobody really knows what that rebuilding looks like. Do you feel that you have support?
The city is, you know, doing drives, donation drives, clothing and all that. We don't need, like, clothes. Like, people need rentals. The rentals are tripling in cost. And so it's just like price gouging. It's like that's not helpful to people that are going to have to pay rental and continue to pay their mortgage on a burned property.
My students are reaching out, like, you know, sending condolences, but, like, we also lost our home, Miss Frazier. Like, you know, we have 3 more days here. Like, we don't know where to stay, and they're, like, cities away, and, like, everyone's, like, driving up the rental prices, and these are families. Like,
thousands
you know,
of families, like this one, now burned out of their homes. A GoFundMe has been set up for the family by Colby Henderson as they begin what is sure to be a long journey to recovery. We'll attach it to this story.
I just can't believe it's gone like this. And I just ran into some of my old students at my church who remember me from being a teacher at this school. Mr. Tigger, we remember you when you were little, when we were little. And now the school is gone. All those memories, teaching the kids to do the walks and shows and performances and chasing kids up and down the hallways. strong like this? This don't seem real. Well, we helped raise a lot of kids.
You knew it didn't make it, but you hadn't seen it.
I hadn't seen it. And I told myself I wanted to come see. I've been in education a long time. And just imagine all of my kids who went to school here and who I now have as teenagers, and the elementary school is gone. I don't think people really realize the traumatic effect this is going to have on our kids. It's way too serious. It's way more than people think it is. It's not just a fire that burned down a few buildings. It burned down a community. We were more than just the houses and the schools and the churches. We were a family. We're a family, bro. We're a family, bro.
I got you.
We're a family, bro.
Flood. I saw in North Carolina when they had that flood, they were showing, trying to protect a little bit. Who does that? Why would you do something like that? You guys. Okay, so let's get to this.
Have also another worry. Looters are taking advantage and burglarizing homes abandoned during those evacuations. Police have now made around 50 arrests. I want to bring in CBS News correspondent Elise Preston, who's following all of this from Altadena, California. From the very beginning, Elise, police officials told you, members of the media, that there will be no tolerance at all for anyone taking advantage during these moments of heartbreak. But what are you learning about folks that they have arrested?
So we do know that we know at least one of those people that was a suspected looter actually tried to arrive to a scene, and they were dressed as a firefighter. They had some type of clothing. But they are not allowing anyone back. We're here in this area that has been devastated by the fires. As you can see, they're not allowing anyone back here. There are blockades at every checkpoint, and we're running into police officers, sheriff's deputies, and National Guardsmen, and they are thoroughly checking IDs. We have had to show 2 press badges and a driver's license just to ensure that we are who we say we are before we're able to get back here. You know, there are some families that are able to stay not too far from this area that are in their homes this morning, and they also say that looters will not be tolerated. I passed a house just the other day, Vlad, and there was a giant sign, and it clearly stated on both sides of the house, looters will be shot. So, the homeowners have also said that they will not tolerate it either.
Let's talk about families that have been impacted by the fires. You actually spoke to one of thousands of people who are suffering and feeling that heartbreak. But what did this particular family tell you?
Absolutely devastating, Vlad. This home that I'm standing in front of is one of 7 that a family lost to the fire. These were multi-generational homes. 4 generations lived in these homes, and they all lived within a block of each other. This family immigrated to the U.S. from Costa Rica first in the 1960s, and they've lived in the same homes for decades, for generations. And so when the fire broke out on Tuesday, for the most part, the family was able to get out of the home. However, there was a relative, an 86-year-old Neva Friedley, who did not evacuate. She did not leave her home, and her family told us yesterday that she was found inside her home, that they found her remains. So the family is grappling with a lot. They are mourning the loss of a loved one. They're also dealing with the loss, as we said, of 7 homes, and 21 family members are displaced this morning. I spoke to one of the older relatives. He was the first one to come to the U.S. from Costa Rica, and he broke down so emotional, Vlad. He said, I was a young man when I came to this country. I came to this country with the clothes on my back and $50, and after 50 years of hard work, I have nothing to show for it. I'm homeless. And so the family is dealing with a lot, though they say they are faithful, and they will just continue to rely on each other and their faith.
Dems versus Republicans. I don't think this is a Democratic fight. I don't think it's a Republican fight, and I don't think it's right for people to be pointing the finger. I'm guilty because I was pointing my finger earlier at at y'all mayor, Miss Carolyn Bass, and I was pointing my finger at y'all chief fire chief lady. I saw her, Kristen Crowley, who she's basically throwing Carolyn Bass under the bus. This is Mother Nature. Yeah, they probably should have had water in the fire hydrant. Maybe they should have had more fire police out. But
Pasadena fire chief needs to be fired. I'm going back to the question of how come there wasn't enough ground personnel.
In Los Angeles suburb Altadena, lifelong resident Elisa Johnson returned to the charred remains of her home after it was destroyed by the wildfires. And while devastated celebrity neighborhoods near Malibu have caught the world's attention, this economically and racially diverse community has also suffered greatly. Johnson thinks her neighborhood, where generations of Black and Latino families have lived, was neglected by authorities. Many Altadena residents told Reuters they couldn't see any firefighters as they fled their burning neighborhood. Those who lost homes here worry that income gap dividing Malibu and Altadena will determine which neighborhood gets prioritized when it's time to return and rebuild. And they fear that insurance payouts for their lost homes won't cover the cost to rebuild the properties they bought cheaply decades ago, meaning they could be priced out of Altadena if it's restored. Like many, Jess Willard III lived here much of his life and returned to the rubble of his home to try and salvage some possessions.
My mom bought this house. I moved here when I was in the 8th grade. When I was 12 or 13. I'm 61 now. My children, they all lived here.
With the death toll still rising, the wildfires ripping through Los Angeles have devoured nearly 10,000 structures, burning for their third night on Thursday.
Nothing prepares you for this amount of destruction. I mean, there's no manual, there's no book.
Los Angeles County Fire Department did not respond to a request for comment about the Altadena residents.
You know, I'm very grateful that I have the opportunity to exercise the opportunity to appeal. Very grateful for our labor organization that is here supporting our efforts. And in the end, we'll see where the votes are, but I'm so grateful for the love and support, and I'm here to support the community. I'm here to support our firefighters to make sure that we can build the fire department out to where we need to go from now and into the future. And it's my opportunity to speak on those matters, and that's why I'm here today. This is an inspirational moment. When you see our boots on the ground take the time to be here, the outpour and love, texts, calls, cards, internationally, different states, local community members. But the reality is, we're here today, and I'm here today as a former fire chief to appeal, but more importantly, it's for the members of the LAFD to get us to where we need to go, and that's the main thing, to get the LAFD what we need to do their job so they can take care of the community. That's an inspiration to me. That's why I'm here. And that's why I'm up here appealing.
Howard spoke with a woman who lost everything for a second time.
The song talks about different stages of life, and the seasons, they go round and round, and the painted ponies go up and down.
Michael and Heather Lyle have been on this carousel before.
Of life. It was like this can't be happening again.
As a longtime music instructor, Heather's given lessons to people in the Palisades for decades. Her family relocating here after losing their home in 1993 to the old Topanga fire.
I didn't think I'd find my paradise again, and I found it there.
This is what's left of their Palisades paradise. Years of memories, marred and melted yet again by flames.
Wow. Honestly, the first 5 days, I was just in shock.
They were able to grab pieces of that paradise.
That's everybody who attended our wedding.
Along with 3 photos.
I grabbed, this is my brother and I when we were really little, and he's died.
A ukulele and 2 guitars.
And my brother got it for me.
One with a very special significance.
It is the one connection that I have left to him, really. I don't need a photo. I have him right here on this guitar.
Her next step is trying to get back to doing what she loves, teaching. The studio she was weeks away from moving into also burned. I asked how she continues to find the strength to keep moving.
Well, I'm a 2-time cancer survivor, and I've had this one thing in my head since then, which has been no one or any circumstance will steal my joy.
The Lyles say they are determined to rebuild.
And I have to say, it gets harder and harder.
Determined to stay on the carousel, to keep singing.
If we're not victims, we are survivors.
We can only look behind from where we came. And go round and round and round in the circle game.
She said losing a home is hard, but actually what's worse is losing an entire community. For 30 years, the same post office, the same dry cleaners, the same smile from Doris, who I'm told...
I want to know, since these are wealthy, super wealthy people, super smart people, people with degrees, master's degrees, you guys, shouldn't be new to y'all. Y'all done had fires before. Y'all done had earthquakes before. I saw actor James Wood. He said that they had cut his insurance off a month before. I blame some of these insurance companies. If you're going to cut a person off, you know it takes 30 days for your insurance to kick in if you get a new insurance. Why cut them off? And then and it's really weird, these insurance cut these folks off a month to 2 to 3 months, and then now everybody's house. It's like everybody's house. Down that street, down those streets. I've never seen that. I saw Tom Hanks' house was still standing. Another dude, 2 or 3 other people, house is still standing. One guy was several heroes. Let's clap for these heroes. These older, mature men at that, who stood behind, came back with their water hose and saved their home and their neighbor's home.
An 85-year-old woman who called Altadena home for more than 5 decades suddenly finds herself starting over. The corner house where she raised her family and planned to spend the rest of her days destroyed by the Eaton Fire. Eyewitness News reporter Tim Pulliam introduces us to Dorothy Graves, who, in the face of so much loss, is still counting her blessings.
We're here off Lost Flora, the historically black neighborhood in Altadena, and just look at what the Eaton Fire has done to it. Longtime resident Dorothy Graves owns this property, and as you can see, her home is gone.
I'm just dealing. I know that sounds strange, but I've been a strong black woman a long time, and I can't just break down now.
Dorothy Graves, keeping her spirits high after one of the most destructive wildfires in California history, burned her home of more than 50 years to the ground.
1969, we moved in on Halloween.
During the era of Jim Crow, Graves and her husband Flemmy moving their family from Detroit to Altadena, the community becoming a haven where middle-class blacks could thrive for decades.
The people that were there were homeowners and hard workers.
But last week, the Eaton Fire forcing Graves to evacuate, the wildfire claiming more than a dozen lives, destroying more than 8,600 structures, a significant portion owned by black families.
It's heartbreaking.
Dorothy's son, Alfonso, growing up with other black families on the block since he was 5.
It is my hopes that those black people will rebuild those homes.
Why is that important?
Because if we lose that, we're losing a lot. We're losing a foothold in Los Angeles.
Studies show the most common form of generational wealth for black families is in home ownership, which still lags behind white Americans because of systemic racism. According to the National Association of Realtors, 72% of whites own property compared to only 44% of blacks. You plan to stay and rebuild?
Yeah. Where am I going to go?
I would hope that the people in Altadena understand, what they have is a jewel and not to take quick and easy money.
This GoFundMe set up to help Dorothy in her determination to come back here and rebuild.
This too shall pass.
Tim Pulliam, ABC7 Eyewitness.
Her family paid off their mortgage only for their home to be destroyed in the fire.
Candace Sweat from our station in Dallas joins us live now from Pasadena, where, Candace, we know homeowners said they were shocked to see those flames get to their neighborhood in the first place.
They were. The owner of this house said when she left, she just knew she would return to a house that was still intact. This house sits right on the Altadena and Pasadena line, and she says in the 12 years she's been here, she's never seen the flames make it quite this far. The owner, Tatris Beasley, is someone who's lived here, has watched the fires in the hills, and she says that she realized really quickly that her house might not make it. She says that her house has been a gathering for worship and parties, and at some point she was even the point person for a block party. Shortly after watching the news, Beasley and her son raced down here, and within minutes the house was in flames. This was especially heartbreaking for them because of the timing. She's a first-time homeowner and said that she'd made her final payment on the house after years of moving around and renting.
And I said, I'm going to save up my money and I'm going to buy me a house because I'm not doing this again. So I did. And I bought my first house. This is my first house. And I said I wanted to pay it off early because I'm ready to retire. So this is it.
And so when we say that they had just paid off the house, she made the final payment and it cleared on the 7th. The house went up in flames on the 8th. So really, really heartbreaking for them. But they are not deterred. They are not defeated. They said they plan to stay here and rebuild. And just an update on the Eaton Fire, it is 55% contained. In Pasadena, Candace